And if you could enter the practice session, and have a good webinar, everybody.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerry Bogas. I'm an assistant director with the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council. Welcome to our session this afternoon on safe systems and emerging and new technologies in transportation. This is the last of a series of topical webinars that we have been holding through the last several weeks, gathering public input for the development of NYMTC's next regional transportation plan. And today's topic is the last one we'll be exploring. We're going to be giving you information, trying to give you some context about our organization, and then using polling software to gather your input that we can use in the development of our next plan. Before we do all that, I'm going to ask Stephanie Brooks from our Public Affairs Office to go over some of the ground rules and prepare us to get started. So, Stephanie.
Hey, thanks, Jerry. Thank everyone for being here. Our presentation today is offered as for AICP for 1.5 credits. I'll put the link in the chat at the end of our presentation. As you heard, this workshop is being recorded. Anytime you have comments or anything like that, please use the chat window. We'd love to hear more. We have some polls, as Jerry mentioned, but also if you have any other comments or any additions, feel free to use the chat. And you'll remain muted throughout the presentation. And then, most everybody's familiar with WebEx, but just in case, the chat window is a little bubble at the bottom. It should be at the bottom of your screen, and you can just type your comments in the window, and we'll be monitoring that. And all of the comments that are received via chat or via poll are getting recorded at the back end, so all your feedback will be incorporated, as we really appreciate hearing from you. So your feedback will go on the record for development of the plan. Jerry, did you want to do our agenda, or should we pass it on to?
That's fine. I'll do it. So we're going to give you a little introduction. So those of you who don't know about the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council will find out. Then we're going to cover the landscape of smart systems and technology, and talk about planning for emerging technology and putting it to the polls. But really, the polls are interlaced throughout all this information. So this is intended to be a very interactive session. And Stephanie talked to you about the AICP credit that's available for this session. So Stephanie, you want to go to the next slide?
Sure. And here's a little bit about NYMTC.
Yeah. So what is NYMTC? Well, we are a metropolitan planning organization with jurisdiction over New York City, Long Island, and the Lower Hudson Valley. And you can see our mission here, serving as a collaborative forum to address transportation issues, facilitating sound technical analysis, working with our member agencies. And it's really important to note that NYMTC is a council and therefore is made up of agencies, working with those members to develop a shared regional vision, and of course, working through the federal planning process to capture the maximum amount of federal funds available for our region for transportation improvements. Next slide. These are our member agencies. On the upper left, you have 5 suburban county executives from Rockland, Putnam, and Westchester counties to the north, Nassau and Suffolk counties to the east. On the upper right, you have 2 New York City officials, the director of the Department of City Planning and the city's transportation commissioner. Under that, New York State Department of Transportation commissioner, and under that, the MTA's chief executive officer. Those are our 9 voting members. We also have 7 advisory members that are listed below those, which you can see prominent amongst those are the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and New Jersey Transit. So again, when you're thinking about NYMTC, we are staff we work for this council, but the council is in fact the organization, and the council is charged with the responsibility for undertaking the planning process that makes federal money come into our region. Next slide. And again, this is the region we cover. We have 5 boroughs of New York City, 3 Lower Hudson Valley counties, 2 Long Island counties, 10 counties total. Next slide. So now the regional transportation plan is a really important part of the overall planning process. It's a foundational piece. It kind of sets the tone for the rest of the process. We are required to update the plan every 4 years, and our current plan moving forward is now being updated for the new plan, which will be adopted next year as moving forward 2055. These plans have to have a minimum 20-year planning horizon, although our plans tend to be longer than that. The plan we're working on will have a 29-year planning horizon. And they include both long and short range strategies, actions, and projects. So that's a key thing to keep in mind, is that we're not just talking about planning for the year 2055. It's really the time period between now and that long range horizon. All projects and strategies that are developed as part of the plan also are considered in the development of a financial plan, which matches the resources we are likely to receive over the period of the plan against what we think we need. So that's a very important financial test that's part of the plan requirement. Next slide. And we've been working with our member agencies on the development of this next plan for about 1.5 years now. And in that process, the members have proposed 6 vision goals to provide the strategic framework for the plan and the planning process. You see the areas that the goals are in here, the buckets that contain them. The plan statements are a little bit more complicated than this, but we have goals for safety and security. We have goals for infrastructure, resiliency, congestion, land use, and transportation equity. So taking together those goals and the related objectives really are the strategic framework for the entire planning process. Next slide. So now I'm going to go, is this back to you, Stephanie, at this point?
Well, I'll introduce Peter Rafferty at Cambridge Systematics, who will be talking us through some smart systems for transportation in the NYMTC region. And throughout, we will be having some polls where you can participate. There'll be an introductory slide very briefly where we'll run through the software, and that will come up shortly. So welcome, Peter.
Hello, thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. The objective today, and as mentioned, this is the 7th of a series of these forums. And today's objective is centered around exploring these opportunities around the region's new and emerging transportation technologies for both personal mobility and for freight mobility. Perspectives for this consider both the user experience as well as things that may benefit how the agency and the member agencies plan for emerging and other new or disruptive technologies. And I'll come back to the terminology in a little bit, and as well as operational aspects and the sorts of things that you may see out in the environment as you're moving around. Really, the primary objective today, though, is to get that feedback and that stakeholder input. And I really do hope to see some comments in the chat and some responses to the polls that we can dig into a little bit. I've got a lot of information, but I'd rather hear from the people attending today what is most interesting to them, and we're going to get into those poll questions in a second. A point on terminology before we go to the next slide, though, is that you're going to see smart systems for transportation across the top, and then the terms new and emerging transportation technologies. And we're really using these interchangeably today. So if you ever have, and there are lots of different terms, if I say something and you want me to say more about what I mean by that, or if you have a different opinion, I want to see that in the chat and we can address that. The next slide. The goals that were mentioned, those 6 and the corresponding objectives are repeated here. I wanted to emphasize that the topic of emerging transportation technology does touch on all 6 of these and several of the associated objectives, but a few to call out here, highlighted in yellow, are safety and security, where we have an opportunity to strengthen connected vehicle and cooperative data environments. Things like the driver assistance applications that are in vehicles. How can we leverage those for better safety gains? What are the security and cybersecurity and privacy issues around these sorts of automation? And then with infrastructure, really, it's important to plan for what can agencies do through policies and investments to better leverage and take advantage of these advanced technologies, whether it's in a vehicle or in a business environment, or maybe it's a new material for how the hard infrastructure is constructed. And then regarding congestion, incorporating emerging and innovative technologies, transportation services, tools, all of these things makes these networks more efficient. They can benefit how we design and operate and monitor these environments to improve objectives and goals across all of these areas. Next slide. Some additional motivations noted here, coordination with related goals among other agencies, as well as the state and the federal goals. There's a real opportunity to leverage additional federal funding through investment in innovative and emerging technologies, including being more competitive for federal discretionary grant programs, of which there are many opportunities, especially in the recent few years. And noting again how technology investments have generally very good rates of return and provide benefits across many different aspects of how we move around our environments. It is still important that we are not getting too focused on any particular technology, and we're not going to get into the weeds on any particular thing, but really thinking about how do we move forward in the next 30-year horizon and maintain flexibility and keep monitoring what's happening and adjusting as we go. And next slide. And toward that, there are some frameworks that agencies use. There's an example down the left side there from a national study that was recently completed last year. But this really is such a broad and uncertain landscape. There are hundreds of different technologies, and any one of them may prove to be immediately valuable, or maybe there's some hype followed by some realism. For instance, driverless vehicles is an example that between 5 and 10 years ago, we really all thought we'd be further along than we are today. So we're facing some new realities, but the advances in other vehicle technologies are still giving us a lot of safety benefits, and there are many, many positive things to keep working on. Throughout all this, being technology aware is a fundamental thing. How we plan for this uncertainty and the flexibility and continuous adaptation are things that, again, I don't have to remind people how these things sometimes play out. But recognizing that there's going to be far more change in this landscape between now and 2055 than there has been in the last 30 years, back to the early 90s, if you think about that similar time span. So a lot of uncertainty. The next slide. As a reminder to this group, the 6 previous forums are done, and they're available for viewing through the plan, or this Moving Forward 2055 website. So if there's any particular topic here or things I mentioned later or that come up in the comments or the polls that you want to go back and dig deeper into, we'll refer you back to these. And there's the link right there in the chat. Thank you. Then I think the next slide. Oh, well, let me give a number of examples. You can leave it here, Stephanie, either way. But just thinking about the previous forums, because we'll get right into some polling about what's on your mind right now. But if you think about freight, there's so much automation. There's these personal delivery devices, the little sidewalk robots that some of you may have seen around. In active transportation, those are pedestrians and bicyclists and scooters. There's a lot of opportunity for pedestrian monitoring for additional safety in a connected data environment. Regarding transit services, the amount of automation, artificial intelligence applications in operations is something really coming into place now. Integrated payment apps across different services, the shared e-bike systems. Energy was 2 forums ago, and then the last forum was about curb management and parking. So a lot of different materials available out there. So yeah, back to Stephanie.
Thanks. So I just put in the chat right below the Moving Forward 2055 link, a link to our Poll Everywhere site. It's when you click on a link in WebEx, it might take you to a warning screen. Just go ahead and click yes, and you'll start the poll. There's also a QR code in the corner of the screen there if you're using your phone. I'll give people a moment to log on. This is a real live polling where you're going to see your results on the screen in real time. You'll just enter your name or you can remain anonymous, click continue, and you'll just respond to the questions and prompts. So I believe we have our first poll question that should be showing up on the link pollev.com/NYMTC. And Peter, I'll let you lead the way here, and I'll note any other responses in the chat or anything else that has come up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes these take a little while to load, so this is an open-ended question. You can type in your feedback, and here we go. It's already the Hyperloop concept. Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Right.
Go for it.
Yeah, really, whatever's top of mind. You know, there's some examples there, but it could be things that are even things we haven't thought of yet, because 30 years is a long time to be working on new ways of getting around or improving safety in our transportation systems. Yeah, the Hyperloop concept. Yeah, that's one that is definitely getting a lot of attention over years. A lot of interesting policy and coordination topics with that. The driverless vehicles, not just personally owned, but I see robo-taxis and trucks listed there. Microtransit, where it belongs, right? Not every city is similarly positioned to make scooters and shared bike programs work in the same way. Curb access technology, yeah, and if you're interested more in that, that was the last forum about curb management and the parking policies and things. Electrification with freight networks, yeah, good, a lot of good things here. There's the shared e-scooters again, high-speed rail, similar concept of moving people between regions as say a Hyperloop. Truck platooning, that's been a really positive one over many years in terms of it being a relatively well-defined thing that the trucking industry, the shippers, or not the shippers, the truck fleets were willing to give it a chance. And so you see there's been a lot of legislation enabling truck platooning around the country. And then air mobility, yeah, passenger aircraft, either crewed or uncrewed, right? And electric ferries, yes, that was mentioned to me just a week ago. Man, a lot of good things here. So as we're thinking about this, then the next polling question, and Stephanie, you decide when you want to go to it, is and if anyone didn't get something in, drop it in the chat. We want to capture that. But this next one is, okay, thinking about all of these things, what of those or others that weren't mentioned, which are the ones that the public sector, these public agencies responsible for the built environment and moving people around and even the digital infrastructure and the data systems, which one of these are they best positioned to advance through policy changes, different investments? There's some of the same examples listed right there. Yeah, energy policy and the fuels. Real-time tracking for smaller transit orgs. Yeah, getting some of these other, so the big transit agencies do a lot of the most interesting things because of resources, but including all of the other smaller agencies and transit operators. There's curb management again. Good. I'm glad there's interest in that because that one is getting good attention around the country. There's some federal funding available for that right now. Safe vehicle design and sustainable vehicle design. There's the federal safe system approach, which incorporates a lot of different aspects like this. Yeah, driverless, and yeah, we'll come back. I've got a bunch of poll questions coming up for driverless vehicles. So yeah, look forward to hearing what folks say about that. Micro hubs, I assume, yeah, referring to like mobility hubs or transit hubs or bringing together different modes like that. Land use, transit-oriented development. Communications-based train control. Yeah, so like yeah, safety applications with passenger rail and freight rail. I assume if I didn't capture that right, drop something in the chat, please. Safe charging, greening last mile delivery. Okay, so these are all, yeah, these all have a lot of a variety of policy and investment decisions. And the application of these is going to vary, as you see on the slide there. This region includes everything from very urban to very rural. Curb management came up a couple of times. That looks really different in a very urban situation compared to maybe really not much application at all in suburban or rural places. Uncrewed air mobility or advanced air mobility, whether human operated or automated, again, there are going to be opportunities for that outside of Manhattan, for instance. So location matters. Yeah, all good stuff. So the next couple of slides are rhetorical questions to help us all think about the sorts of things we need to be thinking about and asking ourselves in the planning process for emerging technology. So how do we plan and prepare for unproven technology or emerging markets or things that just are nascent or very young in their development or yet to take off, when we don't have a good sense of, sometimes as a planning agencies, we may not even have a good sense about what market or private sector association we should be talking to about these things. What's the role of the private sector and the public sector? And I might add academia and universities and think tanks in emerging mobility. The next slide has a few more. As agencies are doing their pilots or demonstrations, what makes that a success? Sometimes it's very hard to gauge what the long-term investment commitment might be to keep it operable, or there may be very limited data about what safety benefit is actually being achieved, or the public perception or public acceptance of something may not be what we thought it would be. What partnerships help advance and implement new technology solutions? And then last, what does that transportation system of the future look like? It sure is going to look different in 30 years than it did 30 years ago. Couple more ground laying slides, and then we'll get into some of the other technologies and then back to some poll questions here. I want to emphasize that these emerging technology applications are increasingly multimodal. Used to be very focused just on highway travel, very auto-oriented. Intelligent transportation systems, or ITS, really came out of the 1960s with ramp metering applications at on-ramps to controlled access facilities, freeways or tollways, expressways with ramps. And it's evolved so much to be not only multimodal, but to involve so many other digital systems and communication networks. And related to this, you might also be hearing the term disruptive technology, or if you are hearing that word disruptive technology, I don't want folks to think that it's always a negative thing. By its nature, there's going to sometimes be winners and losers with things, but it doesn't always, these advances don't always have to be disruptive in the sense that they are displacing some other market or service. Something very disruptive to the taxi industry are these ride-hailing services, these app-driven ride-hailing services, as an example. Conversely, a new innovation back to the 50s were seatbelts. Really improved safety for everybody without displacing any other particular market. Electrification and EVs have a lot of positive things around them, mostly, but is there still a disruptive aspect to it? Yes, there may be to the petroleum industry, but we're always considering these pros and cons of these things and what's really going to give us the most benefit for the investment. I'm sorry, next slide. And the other dynamic or dichotomy to think about is internal versus external. I mentioned earlier in the upfront objective for this is that we want to be thinking about emerging technologies that could be applied both for internal operations for a transportation agency or transit agency or some other operating agency. There's some really good applications of new data sources for planning activities, for instance. The operations centers or the traffic management centers are a big example of ITS for internal operations. And then external systems, more of the user facing or even private sector entirely things. All right. Next is the a section that we can get through. I don't want to go on about any of these. As I mentioned, there's 100 different things, and each of them could be their own forum. What follows this slide is we'll step through each of these 8 categories that are down the left. Sorry, go back one. But before we do that, I want to acknowledge some of these cross-cutting enablers and innovations. And I mentioned digital infrastructure, the communication systems, the power systems that are involved here, data, speaking very generally, data sharing, open data, the standards that are used, the APIs, the applications for things increasingly working in the cloud, or you may have heard the term edge computing, so things working much closer to where the data is gathered. And a chief example of that are automated applications within the vehicles themselves, where there's the sensing going on and the processing happens right there at the edge to make that immediate decision. Communications networks, artificial intelligence, in the way I think of it is very cross-cutting. There's many different applications. It does include machine vision and machine learning, and it can benefit all of these categories, plus the other ones that we haven't thought of yet. Some other things are noted there at the bottom as policies. So there may be policy decisions as part of the 2055 plan that work very well with different emerging technologies. The concept of the 15-minute cities and improving access, separate from auto-oriented travel, but improving access to the services and destinations that people need right near where they reside, and or universal or inclusive design, like starting first with making sure that the built environment and the services and apps and data and things are really accessible to everybody. Okay. All right, on we go. So intelligent transportation systems, I mentioned this is really the broadest category. Some examples there, you see the traffic management center for the New York area in the top image, and just going clockwise around there, there's automated machine vision detection for conflicts at railroad grade crossings. The bottom right image is a very stylized image of what a connected environment looks like, and you can see the driverless shuttles in the middle of the image there. In the lower left is an actual application with the New York City DOT, their project that they did to connect connect 14,000 traffic signals around the area. And all of this is used in a wide variety of ways. There's other back office fare and toll collection systems, and then traveler information and how that's provided out to people through apps or websites or different mechanisms, including the transit on-time arrival information, next bus kind of information, and so that, with that item in mind, traveler information, is the next polling question, Stephanie. Is based on the things I've said so far, I want to hear, roughly how often do you use this real-time information for either traffic or transit? And there's some examples: Google Maps, Waze, Move It, maybe agency provided information on a website. Yeah, okay, good. Yep, constantly. Yeah. And if there's anything else in particular that hasn't been mentioned here, I'm especially interested to see that. So a lot of frequent users here, including multiple times per day. The second category, and again, comments welcome in the chat too. there's things I'm skipping over. But the second category of shared and on-demand mobility involves conventional taxis, but also the terms that you may have heard, like mobility on demand or mobility as a service. Very often, very app-driven services, shared microtransit, paratransit example in there. And by microtransit, again, we're referring to well, definitions vary, but it could be very small passenger vehicles that can get automated or otherwise, or some people include in that the shared bikes and other micro mobility things there. Taxis I mentioned, other on-demand transit, but then there's also the fixed route or other transit options like bus and subway. Some of these terms are interchangeable too. The image in the lower center there is from a company called Navia, which that's a fully driverless shuttle, so it doesn't even have the conventional steering wheel or human operated controls. And the Port Authority did a pilot with this company, so a different vehicle type, but there is activity underway within the region. All right, next is another poll question. Do you use shared mobility, the things I just mentioned, in any form or not? And so yes, regularly, yes, occasionally, no, though I'm interested, or no, I'm not interested. And recognizing it varies by location.
And Peter, there's a question in the chat. Would on-demand include FHV apps?
FHV apps. What is FHV?
Maybe could you put the person who put that question in? Oh, i.e. Uber. Okay. Would that be on demand?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, ride hailing or the
for hire vehicles.
Ride
That's what it
sharing
means.
for hire vehicles. Yes.
FHV is for hire vehicles. Right.
Thank
right.
you.
Okay.
Yes, definitely for hire vehicles.
Definitely.
Yeah, generally on demand versus fixed route, like subway. Okay, nobody's not interested. Then the next one is, it's an open-ended question. And when you think about what I've mentioned so far about intelligent transportation systems and the shared mobility in transit, the question is, what services would you like to see integrated into a single app? Because that's a motivation for a number of different agencies to improve that user experience, so you don't have to have a separate app for each different provider, such as your transit, bus, subway, taxi, the ride hailing, Uber, Lyft, shared, your shared bikes or e-bikes, scooters, parking payments, paratransit. If there's anything else that you think of, it really, the sky's the limit here, and we're just trying to get some feedback. Other things or separate apps work fine. Other things I've heard of is like event venues or retail, retail or dining, especially with transit hubs or mobility hubs. Interregional or intercity transit or trains I see there. Yeah, transit arrival times across different train systems. Yeah, or yeah, the ideal world is if you look up where you are and where you want to go, and you can see the different travel times and where the delays are, regardless of mode, and have those options regardless of mode. Yeah, multimodal connectivity. So different modes and different providers I'm seeing here, or the separate apps. The current status quo. It works. It works. It's just we're always curious about opportunities to make things better and easier for more people. Yeah, the payment systems for bike sharing. Okay. Where you can access different shared mobility. Yeah, good. All right, automated and connected vehicle technologies, kind of a big topic on its own here. All I'll say, let's say a couple things about this, and then we got a handful of poll questions for you. But when we think about automated vehicles and connected vehicles or cooperative data systems, there's different terms. They're not necessarily one or the other. These things are very much working together. And especially the more advanced applications, more advanced the applications get. For automated driver assistance systems, such as emergency braking assist or lane keeping or adaptive cruise control, things that are more commonly found on new vehicles right now, there are some pretty good safety benefits mostly, but we're still kind of feeling our way through how these things are really best used. As you step up, or let me say, as you continue along the spectrum toward increasing automation, all the way to a fully driverless vehicle, such as the ones shown at the top there, the one on the upper left is a driverless uh, a small vehicle for freight delivery in urban situations, and the upper right is a driverless shuttle, again without the steering wheel and pedals. That doesn't have those things, and then some connectivity indicated on there. The Yeah, I just want people to be thinking about that as a real spectrum. There's also truck platooning. There's even bus platooning, automated or automation opportunities and other transit providers. We've mentioned the driverless taxis and shuttles, or like robo taxis as well. So a lot of different things here. So the next polling question is, how do you feel? How do you feel about the driver assisted technologies, such as the apps, dashboards, maybe heads up displays, if any of you have seen those in new vehicles, maps, other displays in your vehicle? Some of the other applications I mentioned, such as adaptive cruise control, lane keeping. If anyone here has ever rented a vehicle recently and all that stuff is turned on, all of a sudden your steering wheel is vibrating or something's beeping at you, that can be take a little bit of getting used to. Mostly like them, some don't. Yeah, some neutral. Yeah, this is this is about what we see, that it's a mix. It's a mix. There's some people are really pursuing these in new vehicles and others less so. So the next question is related. So keep this in mind, because the next question is, are these things helpful, or are they distracting while you operate the vehicle? Or are they both? Or are they neither? And you just pick one there. There's there's some evidence out there over the last 15 years or so that we've really seen the smartphones really take off, kind of in the late aughts, right? 2005, 2010, when these things really took off, and the amounts of distracted driving.
There is a comment in the chat in response to the question. The issue with driver assistant technology is that you grow complacent with it, and it doesn't always work, leading to problems. For example, not seeing lane changes, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, good comments, good feedback on this one. This is, as we think about trends and disruptors, this will continue to be a very important one from a policy standpoint. Okay, next. Have you ever been in a driverless vehicle? So these are the highly automated driverless vehicles. It may or may not have a steering wheel and stuff, but like Waymo's got some vehicles out there that are operating without a driver. I see several no thank you. No thanks. Yep, and some are willing to try it. For the fully driverless vehicles, uh, I was going to say rest assured, but I'm not going to. But for the fully driverless vehicles provided out there, they're generally in pretty constrained environments right now, and they're generally pretty safe. But there are other issues about how they work, and there are plenty of examples of them malfunctioning and even hurting people and even killing people. So this is not something to be taken lightly, and it's a very active area of policy development. A lot of agencies around the country and the world are really grappling. There's a lot of emerging collaboration happening on this, but it's a pretty uncertain area. And then the next
For the
question.
person who's, oops, sorry, just one quick, I'm just curious, the person who said yes regularly, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat what service you use, we very much like to know.
Yeah. Yeah, or where it is. Yeah. And then do you think automated vehicles will improve safety or congestion in your community? So depending on where people are in the region or elsewhere, the benefits of these are going to vary. Not at all little, maybe only on highways, definitely yes, or something else, and add some comments.
And then we have some responses in the chat. Agreed, drivers can over-rely. Oh, this was in response to the driver-assisted technology. Agreed, drivers can over-rely on automated systems and feel like they don't have to be focused on the road. And then for this question, safety, yes. Congestion, no, in terms of what automated vehicles will do.
Yeah.
And then further responses, someone agreed with this, the prior comment, safety, yes. Congestion, no, no benefit to congestion. And then another response to the question, could improve safety and probably make congestion worse unless it is properly priced. Thank you for this feedback. This is excellent.
Right. Yes, all really good perspectives. Yeah, the complacency issue, going back to that one. Yes, certainly in those middle, especially, let me say, especially in the middle areas of that spectrum of automation where we're seeing vehicles driven that have all the controls. They're required to have a driver in the driver's seat. The law says they have to be paying attention and ready to take over. But when they don't and something goes sideways, that's where we get into real trouble.
There's another response to it. It will take a while for automated vehicles to significantly improve congestion, but safety may be an early benefit.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, last poll question in this section on automated vehicles is, would you feel safe sharing the road as another driver or a biker or whatever with driverless trucks? So like a delivery van all the way up to a semi. I'm watching these numbers. So here's the reveal. There was a recent local media station in the region that did a poll to its users, one of these informal polls that they put out there. And here I'm seeing it's actually I got to do the math. What is that? I don't know, somewhere around two to one, maybe a little less than that, that are feeling not safe. But the result of that media poll was 9-1, saying no thanks. They would not feel safe there. So perhaps the bias of folks coming and joining us for a session on transportation technology is coming into play here, but there is a lot of a very understandable public perception and reluctance, reticence, legitimate concerns that are so important to be thinking about in a planning context. The public engagement, the stakeholder engagement surrounding this, a whole range of things, not just this example. All right, thanks so much. So these next 3 or 4 here tie right back to one of the previous forums, but for completeness, I wanted to mention, let's see where energy and electrification. So I've heard electrification and alternate fuels came up earlier in the feedback. It's not just electricity, but or even hydrogen, but other types of propane, methanol, biofuels, et cetera, that are becoming increasingly available as alternatives to petroleum. And there's an example picture in the lower left there of wireless in-road charging. There's other fleet charging, the fully electric waste collection, buses, different types of charging technologies. In addition, some other innovations, I think somebody mentioned electric ferries earlier. That's something that's very applicable, I think, to this region. Cool pavements. So we haven't talked a lot about the actual materials, construction materials, but there's some advances there as well that can help improve energy consumption for a region like this. Okay, any comments on that? Again, welcome here. I didn't have a poll question for that. Regarding active and sustainable transportation, this was, forum number 2, I think. So again, bikes, peds, bicycles, pedestrians, scooters, you see skateboards, any small all-wheeled vehicle is included in this. This is where we use the term micromobility. Fleets of e-scooters or e-bikes, e-trikes even, and not necessarily electric either, but shared micromobility is part of this. Sometimes docked, sometimes dockless. The policy, there's the interesting, I think, policy consideration with surrounding these dockless scooters that have just show up in cities sometimes, and then the city has to catch up on, are these really a good thing for our community or not? Or is it more of a nuisance? Or how do we regulate these? Or policies? Are they allowed on sidewalks? Do they have to be on a street? All of these things that the different agencies are dealing with, and lots of opportunities for collaboration there. Okay, so I refer back to the previous forum on that. Advanced freight and delivery systems. So freight was the forum number 1. That really dove into this topic here for the region from a technology standpoint. I mentioned personal delivery devices earlier, and the PDDs, that's what those things are in the upper left there from those couple of companies pictured there. But there's tons of opportunity for robotics, additive manufacturing, or 3D printing. That's shown in the lower right corner there, creating your materials on demand. There's different types of equipment like the ground control, automated ground control equipment shown in the lower left. So a lot of the things we've talked about apply to freight movement and the logistics systems, artificial intelligence applications too, for improving the efficiency of our freight movement around the region. And then the second to the last one, transit innovations. There's the first of all, the main image in the middle there that I see with a yellow train in it is actually from the Cooper Hewitt. They did a really neat exhibit like maybe 4 or 5 years ago now on the road ahead. I wrote it down, reimagining mobility. And I like that image because it shows a range of transit related innovations. So different types of rail as well as on-demand transit. Somebody mentioned Hyperloop up front, and there's a little picture of a Hyperloop concept in the upper right there. Ways away from commercial implementation, perhaps, but these kinds of emerging technologies are showing good promise. I don't want to discount other types of urban applications, bus rapid transit, transit signal priority. So applications with the traffic signals to smooth and speed the flow of buses. Automation applications also apply to transit vehicles. Other high-speed rail, intercity rail, integrated payment systems. So you can see how a lot of these things are blending and overlapping.
There was a chat comment just came through regarding your last slide, just that they like the call out to pavements and how our roadways and sidewalks can support cooling and can support stormwater management and even vehicle charging. So it was just a positive response to our previous slide.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that comment. Admittedly, what it makes me think of is another project that came up recently on tree canopy coverage for complete streets applications. And while planting a tree is not necessarily an emerging technology, the data that we have now for sensing pavement and sidewalk level temperature conditions over the course of a day or a week or whatever that collection is based on the atmospheric conditions has really been helping us target how we can improve the livability of these communities through things like that. So the next poll question is up. Thinking about these things noted on there: equity, usability, the availability. The question is about these LED or other displays, for example, that you would see at a bus stop showing the next time arrival of a bus. And what your preference is for something like that that's location specific versus using it as a on your own phone. Most of you are saying both. I wonder if anyone has any comment or opinion on a sense of reliability of the information if it's posted on the stop itself versus showing up on your app.
There's a response that there would be an equity issue if it was the app only.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who don't have the smartphone or an app, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good comment. Equity issue. Technology still has not to defend it, but technology has opportunities to improve equity in other ways. For instance, if it's only has only been displayed at a bus stop, but there is an app that has that information and somebody's visually impaired, the app itself can give them the audible information about the next arrival, whereas the equipment at the bus stop may not be set to do that. So there's some novel things available out there.
More responses coming through the chat. Information displays are great if they gave real time all the time.
Yeah, right.
And then another response, both are helpful because if one is inaccurate for whatever reason, it's easy to check the other. And then, but then they add, however, anecdotally, I've run into a lot of people who ask me directly for the time given on my app.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the cell phone app may be better than the time in the display.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, information's good as long as it's 100% accurate and available.
One more quick question. One more quick response. There was agreement regarding one of the comments. A haptics and translation is a good app function. Mm-hmm. Oh, and another comment just came in. Even if users do have a smartphone or a compatible device, ensuring that the app is functional and searchable is another important aspect. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, these things need to work.
Mm-hmm. Someone just responded, amen. Yeah.
Right. A lot of opportunities. The last topic, not going to spend time on this though, are the aviation and the mix of acronyms that I put right on the slide there for you. the advanced, yeah, so I mentioned the different terms there, but the one to be aware of too is the VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, or vertiports that would be appearing. And then there's the drone delivery from Amazon, and in comes the Jetsons, for those that might recognize that. And point of trivia, if anybody ever asks, is that it actually takes place in 2062. So it is just after the planning horizon for this particular exercise, but that's the direction that we're heading if it is accurate. I think an exception to it is that George there there's no way the George would have a manual controller available to him. That's just everything by then will be automated. Oh, another
One
comment?
more thing just came in the chat. Yep. It was just a link from city data for New York about real-time passenger information sign, an important element for customer service and on NYC buses and select bus service lines, so sort of those express bus services in New York City. So it's just an interesting link there for reference if people want to check that out later.
Okay, good. Thank you. And hello, Charles. All right. Okay, then we're closing in at the end here. The next, so after all of that, we've covered a lot of ground. There've been some great feedback items here. Do you feel sufficiently informed about the types of transportation technologies available today, their pros and cons? Maybe think about it as in the planning context too. Like, and if there's anything really missing or other questions that are coming to mind, again, I encourage you to put those into the chat. Sufficiently informed, either not at all, a little, moderately, or very informed.
Someone just noted in the chat that they would have liked to have seen passenger rail discussed a bit more in this presentation.
Okay. And noted as part of the plan too, for different parts of the plan itself would include that, and relevant to subway, intercity rail, perhaps light rail, and the Hyperloop too is included in that. Well, good. A quarter of the respondents are very informed, so that's positive. I wonder if that went up at all during the course of this last hour. So now I'm wondering which of these technologies, either the ones we've mentioned or something else, do you think are most likely to develop most quickly?
And there's just a quick question from Jerry over at NYMTC asking aspects of technology and passenger rail do you feel are most important? Anyone can answer that. This is information would be helpful in plan development. Just one response. For us in New York City, we may need to pay more attention to technologies and information systems and funding to optimize the use of over 500 miles of shorelines and waterways. Yeah,
right.
Water use for sure.
Yeah, that's an aspect I didn't get into today is marine traffic.
Another chat comment, modernized signaling systems is a big one in terms of passenger rail. That's a big aspect of technology in passenger rail that's important. Modernizing transit rail signal systems.
Yeah. And yeah, signaling systems for rail, not traffic signals.
Just in pricing, it's in there.
Maybe, right?
Maybe. Okay, we want to have a crystal ball on that one. We don't, we'll see.
Right. It's something I'm trying not to do is be a pundit or a prognosticator here for any particular technology. There's no shortage of people out there saying this is the future. This is where we got to put all of our eggs into this one particular basket, when there's just so much that we don't know. Automated last mile delivery, yeah, like the picture of the little automated freight delivery vehicle, or the personal delivery devices that we saw from the examples from Amazon or FedEx on that other image, right? I might include automated drone delivery too, as part of that. Congestion pricing, freight platooning on highways. Yep. Still, yeah, that one's just been tricky. Like I said, from a policy and safety standpoint, there are certainly well demonstrated environmental and fuel savings benefits from freight platooning, but the industry is just yeah, it's not quite there yet. We haven't found the business motivation yet to really get that to take off. There are trade-offs. Real-time integration across multiple modes, right? Yeah, integrating data and information. I would suggest that applies both to intermodal travel as well as I'm sorry, I meant to say multimodal travel as well as intermodal freight movement or shipping transfers in integration options for smoothing that and keeping that, we're getting that to be more and more efficient. Software and apps, real-time info, fare payment, yep. Yeah, faster. Yeah, it's a very fast area right now than some of these other very infrastructure-based things or things with big policy issues to sort out, such as automated vehicles. Yeah, ITS. Yeah, it's a big, yeah, constantly evolving area. And drones. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we're seeing more and more of those right there. Again, yeah, an important consideration for these trends and disruptors as part of the planning process. All right. Next, I think we have just two more questions. So thinking about now, not to put a sour note on it, but risks or barriers to adoption in your community, such as the things noted there: cost, security, privacy, inequities, exacerbating inequities, safety, or making safety worse for some users. Any main concerns, risks, barriers for travelers using these new apps or other utilities? Yeah, public acceptance. Yeah, there's no shortage of issues to work through. The political climate, accessibility for all age groups, right? If I didn't say it earlier, the term vulnerable road users, the bicycles and pedestrians, or the very young or people with other mobility, different mobility, often are the ones seeing some increasing, I may say, sometimes seeing some increasing risk with things such as these driverless vehicles and the interaction with bicycles and pedestrians. See congestion pricing. Yep.
It's back.
Yep. Yep. We've all heard about it. Yeah, and the perception, yeah, the public acceptance. App-based microtransit, yeah. Okay.
Eating
Yeah.
up robots. That's actually a concern. Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Lots of
Yeah.
funny stories out there for interfering, not with just the delivery robots, but driverless vehicles as well. All it takes is, here in my town, college kids will put a garbage can over those little delivery robots, and that's enough to stop them. And then, or the other case of just a few months ago, somebody with a T-shirt with a stop sign on it stood at the curb and stopped a driverless taxi multiple times. So some yeah, really, yeah, and those are kind of funnier ones, but there's some really serious challenges and trust.
There's a response in the chat to this question. ITS investments are quickly becoming obsolete.
Yeah, some especially certain legacy equipment. Yeah, funding and financing and keeping these technology systems up to date so they're secure and well maintained and interoperable, so you can share data across systems and with other agencies. That's another really important consideration for a long-term plan like this, is because we're not just building a piece of road and letting it sit there for 30 years. We're building something that takes a lot more upkeep. These are all great comments. Thank you. The other one is the next question is directly related. So thinking about these same sorts of barriers that we're thinking about, think about it instead of the apps or users, but the risks or barriers for infrastructure or traffic control. So signals, striping, signing, any managed lane applications. I would include signaling for train operations, tolling equipment, anything impacted by automation or artificial intelligence. This one is one of the trickier questions here, but I'm curious to hear if there's some other thoughts about what we want to make sure that we're not forgetting to think about for the plan. Yeah, the maintenance and funding.
It's true. Automation does not get distracted.
Doesn't. System complexity. Yes. Automation and AI training more difficult. Yes. Yeah, we didn't talk much about the workforce yet, but the upskilling and changing workforce and having the right expertise within the agency or available to these operating agencies to sufficiently maintain and operate these increasingly complex systems. Yeah, and then the energy use. Yeah, pretty much everything we're talking about is needs electricity. And the grid related to that, especially with electric vehicles. And the reliability and resilience implications of the grid as well. And political priorities do change. All right, we got just a couple more quick things as we wrap up here. So technology itself can be strategic, but as a reminder, we do it because it benefits those 6 goals and associated objectives that have been formulated for this particular plan. And as long as we're proactively managing the risk around it, and I don't mean to minimize the difficulty of that, and really working to preserve safety for all users, preserving security and privacy, and managing cybersecurity, there is very real opportunity to benefit all populations over the long term. But as we've talked about, there can be some unevenness or even exacerbating some disparities sometimes with new technology applications. And being mindful of that as we plan ahead. Lots of opportunities to leverage lessons from around the country and the world and with other large metropolitan areas, and the need to be adapting and continuous engagement with stakeholders is all part of this. So the very last question that we got in the poll here is again, what else? What else haven't we thought of, or have you heard, or what are you thinking of in terms of other considerations for this whole team to be aware of when planning for smart systems, emerging technology for transportation? Knowledge gaps, knowledge among, yeah, I think of, yeah, different the public as well as agencies. Planning for weather and climate change. That is definitely a trend and disruptor. And yeah, part of the planning, part of how it's a part of all the work we do as planners now. And who isn't being served, always a reminder. The climate change again, increased storms, water, yeah, how are they impacting technology? Conversely, how, what are technology applications to help manage increasing risk or resilience challenges that are being exacerbated? Consistency across boundaries, jurisdictions, making transit attractive for drivers, even casual trips. Don't let big tech reinvent the wheel when it comes to systems that already work. Right. Yes, that's yep. Always part of what we do in transportation planning is
There.
try not to get too caught up. Sorry, try not to get too caught up with what the next shiny object that the industry might be selling us. Yeah.
It's a chat question that just came, a chat response that just came in. Knowledge as in terms of responding to their poll, knowledge as in the public at different levels of ability, whether
Okay.
due to education level or cognitive functions.
Good. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. Knowledge gaps. Yeah. Specifically around that. Political interests, driverless vehicles, improving accessibility, right? Lack of control or consideration in regard to emerging technologies and AI. Lack of control. Yeah, okay. So like, yeah, letting some of these technologies get too far ahead of maintaining safety and mobility and access and having the right policies and regulations in place. Yeah. Okay, onward. Last thing, yeah, just a reminder, there are frameworks out there for how we plan for these emerging technologies. The amount of feedback here has been just superb, and some new things for us to think about that I know I haven't been sufficiently thinking about. So this is part of the awareness and the collaboration among the different people people and organizations represented here. It's helping NYMTC prioritize where to put effort and investment, making sure that the plan is reflecting all the things that should be. And then similarly, NYMTC has opportunities to support these things in different ways and support the partner agencies, not just in 2055, but everywhere from, as mentioned in the introduction, everywhere from here until then and beyond. The organizational and workforce capacity and development, and the jobs implication. There are always going to be changes in jobs, and so workforce training, like I mentioned earlier, making sure you've got the right knowledge and skills to maintain and understand some of these things that the industry might be throwing at us as operating agencies. And there's that quote there that, smart refrigerators need smart technicians. So you're still not, the jobs question isn't so much as eliminating jobs, but as just changing jobs. And then continuous monitoring and adaptation. So a lot there. We covered a lot of ground. That the next slide, I think, Stephanie, is just the any other questions at this point? And there's the link. Yep.
We do have a couple of minutes. If anyone has a question, that you can raise your electronic hand and you can tell us what it is. Any hands going up? Anyone with any questions that they want to ask us?
Nothing as of yet, and nothing in the chat just yet.
Okay, so we also have the web portal. The link is there, the URL rather. And so feel free to go explore that if you'd like. Before Stephanie goes into the benediction of AICP credits, I just want to thank everybody, first of all, for your time, but second of all, for your feedback and your input. Tremendous information. We really learn from these sessions, and particularly in areas like this where emerging technology is a bit of a nebulous concept, and finding out how people feel about it and what they think about it is very, very important to how we fashion an approach to it. So thank you very much for that. And I'm going to turn it back to Stephanie for the AICP benediction. Thank you, Stephanie.
The benediction. Thank you all very much for your attendance. And this is some of the best feedback we've received. Really, I really appreciate it. I just put a link in the chat for those of you who are interested in receiving your AICP credit. You can just follow this link here in the chat, and you could just add to the log or log the event. It's actually the link in the chat is better than what's on the screen because this goes right to this one event for today. And you can just click that link and then log your time. And this presentation and all the others from the other forums are on our Moving Forward 2055 website, and also on NYMTC's YouTube channel. So there's lots of, we have some really interesting talks from our previous forums. So I encourage you to look at those. And also those are also AICP credit worthy as well. If you missed one, you can get credit from watching them. So check out our YouTube channel as well.
And if you can't get enough of this stuff, we're doing another session just like this tonight at 7 o'clock. So
yeah, come back
feel free to
more.
join us. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.